What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Iron Roots Podcast. This is episode 2, and I'm your host, Zach Even-Esh. We've got an awesome episode for you today. Just talking about it gives me goosebumps. The photos of this gym that we're going to talk about fires me up. The stories make me wish that I was born in a different era. This gym was known as the Powerlifter's Paradise. Some people called it as the Disneyland of powerlifting gyms. So I'm talking about nothing else but Zuver's Hall of Fame gym. Let's get into the show. You are going to love it.
This is Plae's Iron Roots,
a podcast dedicated to uncovering the strength legends, the training methods, and the stories around physical culture and iron history. I'm your host, Zach Even-Esh. Grab yourself a protein shake, chalk up, and prepare to travel back in time through some of the most awe-inspiring stories of iron history. It's go time.
Now, when I first heard of Zuver's Hall of Fame gym, I had heard stories of everything in this gym was the biggest, the best, the biggest water fountain, the biggest barbell, the biggest dip bar. So when I did some Google searching and saw the stories and the photos, it blew my mind. And I found out that the owner, the founder, Bob Zuver, was actually part of the original Navy SEAL teams called the UDT, the Underwater Demolition Teams. So Bob was originally from Ohio, but he moved out to California, took his family out to California because he loved bodybuilding. And that's, the dream of going to Southern California is where it was at. So Bob goes out to California. He's got no job. He takes his family and he's a painter. And he settles into the California lifestyle and he begins training out of Bill Pearl's gym. It was called Pearl's Gym. So a little bit after his family's arrival, they moved to an area called Costa Mesa. This is where Bob got the bug to own his own gym, and he converted the garage in the back of their house for the neighborhood kids. This was the official beginning of the world-famous Zuver's Gym in 1960. It was located on 443 Hamilton Street in Costa Mesa. But Bob did not want this to be an ordinary gym. He wanted this gym to be fun, so he described his vision to be the Disney World of gyms. So he began devising clever machines and oddities. So his water fountain was a fire hydrant that looked like it had a fire hose coming out of it. The lat pull down looked like a Ferris wheel. He also had other big equipment in there, such as a barbell that was 2,000 pounds. He had a 1,000-pound blob, and the front of his gym looked like you were going into the animal kingdom. There was a gorilla out front. There was a 600-pound concrete and stone door with a 300-pound dumbbell attached to it. And then out front was Big and Little Zuverman, which was like this huge statue, which I believe now made its trek out to Pennsylvania at a gym called the Brickyard Gym. Out of Zuver's gym came some of the most famous Olympic plates in the world, perhaps the most famous plates in the world, not some of the most famous plates. They went in 50-pound increments because Bob saw some of the guys training getting so strong that they were basically expending too much energy putting on all the 45s. So he created 50, 100, 150, and 200-pound Zuver plates. They're amazing. A pair of Zuver plates recently made the news because they sold for over $4,000, making them the most expensive weights in history. Now, I want to tell you an awesome story that I heard from Dr. Ken that just blew my mind. At one point, I had read that Dr. Ken rented a trailer and lived out behind Zuver's Hall of Fame gym. So there was a trailer behind the house for $30 a month, and he said nothing could have been better. It was a steal of a deal. And Bob Zuver would create all of his own equipment. So check this out. This blows my mind. They said one day they heard about a crash on the freeway. So Bob and Dr. Ken rushed over to pick up the guardrail that got destroyed from the accident. They bring it back to the gym, and then Bob created it into an incline bench. So what I want to do is I want to read you guys a story from one of my favorite old school bodybuilding websites, DaveDraper.com. Dave Draper was a bodybuilder from the golden era, the 50s, the 60s, and just a little bit into the 70s. But his website is filled with awesome information that a lot of strength coaches don't really know about. And whether you're a coach or a lifter, this is a website that you want to really check out. It's super inspiring. So here's a story about Zuver's gym. It says the original Zuver's gym was a large 30 by 100 foot rectangular building that Bob Zuver built in his backyard at his house in Costa Mesa. Now this was the original one, and you're going to hear about how the gym expanded and evolved. The front door was a foot thick steel and stone contraption. It must have weighed at least a ton or so. A 30-foot gorilla stood out front on what had been the driveway. The benches were adorned underneath with cutout and painted steel rhinos that had been welded on. And my guess is that Bob knew how to weld from his time in the UDT teams, having to do probably welding underwater. Little active maintenance was done by Bob or his employees in the gym, so the place was, to be kind, a little bit filthy. For example, on the floor from years of guys doing pullovers and banging their huge weights on the floor at the bottom of the reps, the carpet was no longer there, and the concrete floor actually had holes in it by 3 or 4 inches, exposing the rock and the concrete mixture. They said a jackhammer couldn't have done a better job. Concrete dust was basically sprayed out to the sides for a foot or so around those craters from the heavy weights being dropped on the cement floor. Same thing around the benches where the plates were thrown on the floor. Now you got to remember, these plates went from 50 pounds up to 200-pound plates. And Dave Draper used to train at a gym called The Dungeon, and it had one purpose and one purpose alone, which was training to get huge. And we don't hear about that nowadays. We don't really even see that nowadays. So to imagine a gym where the purpose was to get strong and jacked just fires me up. They said that cardio was unheard of. It was just a foreign word. And that this was very much a guy's place. It was all men that trained at the original Zuver's gym. It was all function leading to the one end, which was get strong, get jacked. Nobody cared if it was a little bit dirty. But as Gold's Gym became the mecca for bodybuilding in the 70s, Zuver's was the mecca for powerlifting. Even though guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco trained there, it was still mostly a place of strength. Said there was a lot of thick guys dressed up in everything from cutoffs and t-shirts to tank tops and overalls. Shirts and shoes were kind of optional, so they didn't really have rules at this gym. It was just a place of work. And with Bill's gym, this was another gym in the area, guys sometimes brought their dogs to the gym. So they say it was super, different than the gyms of today. But here's where things changed. In the late 70s, with Arnold's popularity and Arnold starting to get into the movies, the bodybuilding world and certainly powerlifting began to change. So Arnold brought bodybuilding to the forefront, and so did a little bit of Sylvester Stallone with the movie Rocky. People started seeing a different kind of physique, and strength was kind of not so much the thing. It was more about how you looked and appearance. So Bob had to close his backyard gym because he saw that there's a possibility to actually make money if he changed his gym a little bit. So around 1978, that's when the original Zuver's gym was shut down, and he created a new location that was more of a showcase. It was going to be a model for future investors. He saw that Gold's Gym was going to start licensing, and he thought maybe this was an opportunity. In addition, women's bodybuilding, the early days of the Miss Olympia started coming about with women like Rachel McClish, Corey Everson. So he got this new location, and it was a little bit more fancy. They had mirrors everywhere. It was essentially going to be like a model gym for the Zuver's gym for women. There was rules now. Couldn't dump the weights on the floor. No chalk was allowed. You had to have real workout clothes and shoes required. And there was a similar gleaming facility that was opened up. It was like a separate aerobics area. And so Bob Zuver began to gear up for the licensing, and he made all the equipment in a nearby manufacturing facility. And to this day, There's not too many guys out there, let alone welding, let alone these kind of small mom and pop people making equipment out of like a little fab shop. So this whole thing was basically going to be a springboard, and Joe Weider saw this and wanted to partner up with Bob Zuver. They were going to call it the Weider and Zuver's Gyms. So Joe Weider was very much the entrepreneur. He saw this, he wanted to be a part of it, and things kind of fell through. The thought of this kind of dream team happening, it fell through, but by 1981, Bob Zuver essentially was money strapped by the expansion of those showcase gyms. He had to shut it down. He sold all his equipment, shut down the gym doors, and that Zuver's Gym became a dry cleaner and then a graphic arts company. And a lot of people still to this day have memories that they share about the original Zuver's Gym, and that there will never be another place like it on earth. It was really just the paradise for powerlifters and any strength athlete, and it just heartbreaking that places like that can't pay the bills. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed going down this memory lane about Zuver's Hall of Fame Gym. I hope I didn't break your heart talking about how the gym went out of business, but it's amazing how the stories and just the aura, like I read about it and listen to myself talking and I get goosebumps. Like I could just feel what it would have been like to be in that gym. So again, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting the Iron Roots podcast. Make sure you keep up with us on my social media at Even-Esh, and of course with my partner Plae. I'm super excited to bring you guys another episode the next time. Have an awesome day.